where best friends and next-door neighbors, Willow and Lillian, spill the tea on murder, mysteries, and other things that go bump in the night. So get your favorite teacup ready, and let's get into it. Welcome to Cruel Tea Podcast. This is Lillian, and with me is Willow.
Hello.
Hi. And I'm just going to come out and say it. I said it on Maris Monday, but I'm going to reiterate it. We have decided to go down to one true crime episode a week. And don't be sad. Originally, we wanted to put out as many episodes as we did so that when someone found us, they could binge the podcast. Mm-hmm. And I think with over 300 episodes, that goal has been more than achieved. And if we keep going at this pace, there will be nothing left but like powder where we used to be, just little crumbles. We still got to make money. Yeah. And the research takes a very long time. Mm-hmm. So don't be sad. We still have Patreon. That is not changing. Mm-hmm. It will be 4 episodes a week for sure. And that's the tea. Like, we were falling behind on everything because both of our lives have just been a little complicated lately. Yeah. And I don't want to ever sacrifice quality for quantity. Mm-hmm. And I was starting to get scared that was happening. So instead of doing that, expect our episodes to be better researched, a little bit longer. Like, mine's longer today than I usually do because I had the time to really dig in. I got to read material. I got to watch many documentaries and research court documents. And like previously, I wasn't able to do that as much as I wanted. Right. And so I'm really actually pleased with how the direction of this. Absolutely. It also gives us more time to focus on Patreon. So this is like, if you're not a patron, this is really the best time to become one. Seriously. Mm-hmm. I have so many cool things planned. And now I actually have a little more time to do them. Yeah. Now I'm able to actually focus on it. Yes. Yeah. But we had too many things in the air, and now I'm just getting hit by things I can't juggle anymore. And so I don't want ever to put out something that I consider subpar. I hold myself to a pretty high standard. Right. Absolutely. And y'all, both me and Willow have been going through it. This year's been tough. Life has not been kind. No. But we persevere. Like, don't worry, the podcast isn't going anywhere. Right. We're not going nowhere. I mean, with a majority thanks to our patrons and all of our listeners out there keeping us afloat. Yes, so. And I appreciate that greatly. So today we're talking about the case of Shawn Sellers. And I'm surprised. I had never heard of this case because it took place in my home state. Huh. It was at the height of the Satanic Panic, which added to it, actually, and including the fear about Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, we'll get into all that. But I had never heard of this case, and it was so controversial for the time. And you'll see why as we go along, why it was so controversial. But I really deep dived into his background. If I just told the story of the case, it'd be over pretty fast, probably like 30 minutes. But I really went into his entire childhood because it's really important as to why all this happened. Mm-hmm. And I really want y'all's opinion at the end. Okay. So as you listen, I want you to like, is Shawn full of shit? Or do you believe there's some truth to what he's saying? So we'll get into it. And here are the trigger warnings. Suicidal ideation, self-harm, and child abuse. This case is very disturbing all around. Was it the devil? Mental illness? Or are some people just born evil? This is the story of Shawn Sellers, one of the few people under the age of 18 when they committed the crime to be put on death row for his heinous acts. Shawn was born on May 18th in Corcoran, California in 1969. His mother, Vonda Blackwell, was only 16 when she gave birth to Shawn. Shawn's biological father was Richard Sellers. They got married in Kings County, California a year before Shawn was born, and so that means Vonda was only 15, but Richard was only 17, so it's not like a grooming situation or anything. They were just 2 kids who were too young to be doing something as serious as getting married. Their marriage was rife with troubles right from the start. Richard had a very serious drinking problem and just could not remain faithful to Vonda. He cheated on her constantly. By the time Shawn was 3, their marriage was over. After the divorce, Shawn lived with Vonda, who moved back to her home state, which is also my home state, Oklahoma. Now, I tried to find out what happened to Shawn's dad. It appears he just was never in his life. So by the time he was 3 years old, he never saw his biological father again. Sean had no contact with Richard. Vonda raised the boy by herself for a few years. It was hard being a single mom. Hell, it's hard being one now. But back then, things were different for women. You couldn't even get a fucking credit card. You couldn't. You couldn't. Could you not? I don't even think you could get a bank account without a man signing for you, like your father or a husband. This is like 1972, around this time.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And I was born in 1979. And I think it wasn't until 1976 that you could actually get a credit card and a bank account in your name without a man signing for it.
That's disgusting.
And I just want you all to sit with that for just a second. And this is the environment that Vonda's in, because she gets a lot of blame for what happens. And I just don't, given how her life went, I'm not really sure how she could have made any different choice. I mean, she was only 15 when she got married. She was 16 when she got pregnant. Now she's a single mom she's like 19, living on her own. So, I mean...
She didn't have many options.
She has no options. And, the jobs that women could do back then were, secretary.
Waitressing.
Factory worker. You couldn't... there was no upward mobility. It was very difficult. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it's any better now. It's just different. Yeah. The struggles are different, because now I feel like it takes a 2-person household to make it.
Absolutely.
And for us, it's like a 3-person household to make it. Like, my middle child helps... pay the way because they live here. Mm-hmm. It's just really rough. So, single mamas, my hat's off to all of y'all. She worked full-time to support herself and her child, and she left Sean with relatives when she worked. She was lucky in that regard. She had a supportive family, and so she would leave Sean with them while she went to work. But already the seeds of resentment are being sown with Sean because he wants his mom. But his mom can't be there. She has to work. A few years after her divorce from Richard, Vonda met a man named Paul. Now, I'm going to pause here because in my research, the stepdad has 2 names. It's either Paul or Lee. On Wikipedia, you will see it as Lee. So I do not know why this is the case. Some people have a middle name they go by. I think that Paul was his middle name. And so he went, by that instead of Lee. I don't know. I don't know why there's this discrepancy, but you find it sometimes in cases. And anyway, they married, and it was her hope that she'd finally have enough money to stay at home with Sean full time, and that it would provide a stable home for him. But Paul, he was a former Green Beret, and he thought Sean, even as young as he was, Sean was 4 or 5, that he was too sensitive. Was too soft, and he wasn't manly enough. So the toddler's not manly enough for Paul. And this is when I say, toxic masculinity, this is the shit I'm talking about. Yeah. What do you mean manly? He's a baby. He's a child.
He's supposed to be soft.
He's supposed to be soft and gentle. Raising soft and gentle boys is so good, as a parent.
Yeah.
And it just makes me sad because... my oldest Will was just the typical rambunctious everywhere boy. But John, my youngest, was very not that way, very quiet, very timid. He carried around stuffed animals till he was 10. It's just, some kids are like that. They're sensitive, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I sure don't think it should be abused out of them.
Right.
So Sean and Paul never got along. Paul was a very strict disciplinarian. And at first, Sean was scared of him. And then later he just grew to hate him and resent him.
As you would, yeah.
The mid-1990s were rough in Oklahoma. There was a terrible recession, and that meant Vonda could no longer be a stay-at-home mom, which was, in part, her motivation for marrying Paul in the first place. Paul was a long-haul truck driver, so she joined him on the road, and they you can do that. You can have a co-driver, and you guys change out. Mm-hmm. But that meant that Sean had no parents to look after him, so he went to go live with his grandparents, Jim, and his step-grandmother, Geneva, as Paul and Vonda couldn't take a young child on the road with them. Geneva thought that Sean was a needy child and had a hard time dealing with him. Basically, she thought he was too soft and sensitive also, and it annoyed her.
Sweet thing just wanted a hug. My God.
He was such a lonely, bright, clever boy, and he was just treated really poorly for this. And it makes me really sad. Sean did very well in school and actually made friends fairly easily, but his grandparents couldn't see themselves raising him long term. So when Sean was in 3rd grade, Paul and Vonda moved the family to California again, looking for better opportunities. Things from the outside seemed pretty normal, but Sean had a secret that he'd been keeping since he was 6 years old. He'd been hearing voices.
Oh, baby.
And the voices were cruel and mean. They were loud and critical, angry, raging. Sean was scared of them at first. They made him feel like everything he did was wrong, but eventually he just assumed they were normal things that everyone struggled with. And if everyone had them and no one said anything, he just figured he had to get good at ignoring them too. He felt too embarrassed about them to tell anyone that he was struggling.
Yeah.
I do want to take an aside because I am about to paint a very sad, sympathetic picture of this person, of Sean. But how much of it is true?
Okay, yeah.
And we'll talk more about that at the end, but I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind. I don't want you feeling too sorry for him.
Right.
And I always encourage empathy.
Right.
But it's just the straight story told this way, and I do think it's more complicated. And I'm not sure I entirely believe him myself. We'll get on to that a little later. While Sean hadn't had much trouble making friends in Oklahoma, he didn't have any success in California. He was just the awkward new kid. Sean became lonely and withdrawn, and he rarely saw his parents, who had to work all the time to keep a roof over their heads. He had no friends. The only person he had to talk to was the babysitter, who kept an eye on him while his parents were at work. And here's where I think the story starts to kind of... oh man, I'm not believing it. According to Sean, the babysitter brought over satanic literature. Being a curious kid, he started reading it. Now, again, this had never been proven. And Sean, I think, has always struggled with the difference between fantasy and reality. There's a lot of misinformation in this case, too. And part of that is Sean's fault and his lawyer's fault. They kind of pushed an agenda at trial that became very sensationalized, which we'll get to in a bit. But do I believe that a babysitter brought over satanic literature? Not really. I just don't really believe that. He's 6 years old.
It's not that it never happened ever before in anybody else's
so unlikely.
lives,
it's so out there. Huh?
I'm just saying that, like, it's not like it's, like, completely unheard of.
No.
But, like, a teenage babysitter having a satanic book.
I mean, maybe.
I mean, it's far-fetched. I'm just saying that, like, I could see why people would believe it, but
I am not buying it.
It's likely that he got his ideas from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. And I think Satan had precious little to do with any of it, but, hey, we'll see.
That's what we see a lot with this month.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This case, in general, just exemplifies the Satanic Panic. It's got everything that a Satanic Panic case could have. Sean claimed that his babysitter is the one to tell him about satanic rituals and the occult. It was another secret he kept, along with the voices in his head. Meanwhile, money problems still plagued Sean's mother and stepfather, so they took up long-haul trucking again a year later, and Sean was back with his grandparents. Sean liked his grandparents and came to see them as his parents. They were the ones who raised him. He kept his secrets and found Jim to be too strict and borderline abusive, but it was a stable household otherwise. He liked living with them. He didn't have a choice anyway. At the start of 1979, Jim and Geneva, Sean's grandparents, separated. Sean was having a harder and harder time connecting with people. He was emotionally withdrawn. The separation didn't seem to affect him, his family said. I disagree. I think it affected him deeply. I think the only stability in his life was gone.
Yeah.
That he had no emotional reaction meant that he was already real fucking traumatized. That's my opinion. At school, he was described as a good student, but shy and quiet, where he used to be kind of friendly and outgoing. When Vonda and Paul returned, Vonda thought that Sean was literally the perfect child, given how quiet and well-behaved he was. She enjoyed spending time with him. However, Sean didn't see his mother as his mother anymore. She'd been gone too much, moved him around too much. And Paul thought Sean was still too soft and couldn't connect with the boy because of his perceived softness, and wimpiness, and girliness. He wanted Sean to be tough. Thus, he was extra hard on him, because he wanted him to be a real man. It's disgusting. Paul took Sean hunting when he was 10 years old to turn him into a real man. And what does that say? That your idea of masculinity is killing things? I think that's really fucked.
So traditional. Is it not, though? Like, it is just so, especially you see it here in the South a lot.
Oh, yes. You take your boy hunting and fishing.
That's right.
You make your girl get in the kitchen and help mama.
Mm-hmm. Really, like, feminizing softer qualities, gentler qualities, and really, like, masculinating
violence.
Yeah.
It's so toxic.
It's disgusting.
You let your boys cook. Gordon Ramsay is a fucking chef, and he makes millions of dollars.
And nobody's calling him a sissy.
No, he would call you an idiot sandwich and a donkey.
Yes.
And then I would laugh because it's funny when he does that. Yeah, so Sean didn't want to go. He didn't want to kill an animal. The thought of killing an animal horrified him.
Yeah.
His uncle came along too, and both of the men pressured him by saying, quote, "If you don't pull the trigger, you're not a real man." Finally, a deer was in sight. Sean had a perfect shot, but he hesitated. He didn't want to kill it. Paul and Sean's uncle taunted him, calling him a wimp and a sissy, pressuring him to pull the trigger. Sean eventually caved, shooting and killing the deer. They forced him to help field dress the animal. To Sean, this was the worst part. Paul and Sean's uncle hung the deer up by a rope and showed Sean how to cut off its genitals, how to disembowel it. Sean was horrified by the entire event. It was so traumatizing. Sean's uncle also showed him, on a separate occasion, a wounded raccoon.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And he put the axe down on its head, pulled on its leg till its head popped off. I thought that was funny. But it just seemed horrible and cruel to Sean.
Yeah.
Because of course it was. The hunting trips started happening more frequently. They filled Sean's head with dark thoughts. He'd been a good-natured and fairly happy child until then, despite the fascination with the occult and the voices in his head, if he's to be believed. Soon, he seemed morose and maudlin. He started feeling paranoid as the voices grew more negative, more critical of him. And worse, they grew louder until they were screaming and shouting. Sean would run a string across his doorway to make sure nothing was crossing the threshold into his room. To make sure no one was coming into his room while he wasn't there, Sean started taking a small comb and brushing the carpet in all one direction. That way, if anyone walked into his room, he'd be easy to see the footprints.
Oh, my God.
He was riddled with paranoid delusions, but still he kept this a secret from his family, if he's to be believed. Okay, so I have been friends with people with schizophrenia. I've been friends with people with bipolar and other, who have had psychotic episodes.
Yeah.
There's no keeping a secret. You can't control it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for a while you can kind of try and mask, but when someone's having that much paranoia, I find it really hard to believe no one noticed. And it makes his story of hearing voices I'm having a hard time believing it. Especially his performance in school. He did not get in trouble in school at all until his late teens. So I'm just finding it really hard to believe.
But also, you gotta remember that the adults in his life aren't really looking at him under a microscope.
Oh, no, of course not. I'm talking about at school.
Okay.
How are you going to maintain, at 6 years old, hearing voices and not have outbursts at school? Because he was a model student, an honor student. I'm just not buying this part. That's not to say I don't think he wasn't mentally ill. I absolutely do.
I wonder if maybe he was ill at home and not at school. Like, is there...
It don't shut off like that. No, in fact,
know.
It gets worse when you're not in your home environment.
Okay.
At least as far as I've researched. Now, I'm not an expert. I'm not a psychiatrist. But I really do doubt his story entirely. Okay. I'm going to keep going with it because I think it's important.
Well, and it has been said and reported too.
This is said like the gospel truth.
Yeah.
And I think his supporters use it to say he shouldn't have been in jail. And I think his detractors use it to say he should be in jail. So we'll get to it though. We'll get to it. Sean's mother and stepfather were in and out of his life. Their job meant they were on the road more than they were at home, and this left Sean in the care of several different relatives and babysitters. His parents weren't around enough to see changes in him or to notice how disturbed and paranoid he was becoming. But no one else noticed either, which was my point earlier. Every time his mother left, he grew more and more resentful towards her. Before leaving California, he had taken one of his former babysitter's books on Satanism. He found himself fascinated by the stories of demons and hell and rituals. Sean started seeing the occult as the only constant in his life, something he felt connected to. He struggled making connections with other people, and his life felt so chaotic and unstable that this was what anchored him. Sean struggled with bedwetting. If he were to have an accident 2 days in a row, his uncle would make him wear the dirty diapers on his head to teach him a lesson.
Oh my God.
And to shame him. Naturally, this became a traumatic situation. A lot of young boys struggle with bedwetting.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes a while for their bladders to mature enough to sleep through the night without an accident. Studies have shown that it only becomes more of a problem if the parents make it one. If you are humiliating and shaming your child for having an accident, then they're going to develop a fucking complex about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it will make potty training that much more difficult. Just get some fucking pull-ups and a rubber sheet and you deal with it.
Yeah.
I just don't understand the cruel way we treat little people who have been in the world for 6 years. Now we're going to be mean to them. It just makes me so angry. Mm-hmm. Sean's uncle was trying to make a man out of him when he was 10. And I don't think any study on earth would have convinced him not to abuse Sean. Because that's what that shit is. It's abuse. Vonda and Paul started physically abusing Sean when they were home. To them, he was strange and weird, and they thought he just needed a firm hand or a beating or two to toughen up. But this just drove Sean further into the occult and isolation. He used the occult as a means to escape the misery of his everyday life and his increasing mental health issues. He had no one in his corner actually looking out for him. Sean felt powerless, and the occult promised power through black magic. He fantasized about having power over the abusive and neglectful adults in his life. The worse things got at home, the more he leaned into his fantasy world of rituals and demons. Sean felt like his life was always out of his control, and studying the occult gave him the illusion of control he so desperately craved. When Sean was 12, he became obsessed with Dungeons and Dragons, which isn't weird.
Right.
That's the age, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the age.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons, I want to take this aside because I played Dungeons and Dragons. I played Vampire Masquerade.
We used to play together.
Yeah, we played together. And it was fun.
It was so much fun.
I believe Dungeons and Dragons is great for kids.
Yes.
It encourages creative problem solving, math, teamwork, cooperation.
It was really good for my oldest.
Yeah. Communication.
In school with all of those, all those subjects.
I think it should be like a class.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think it'd be great for kids to run their own campaigns. It's so creative.
Mm-hmm. It made him so good at math. It made him really good at math.
And if you have kids, get your D&D and play with your babies.
Seriously.
You can do it all online on your cell phones now, too. Mm-hmm. Keep your character sheets on there and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's
probably
very
get an
fun.
app for that, huh?
And again, Baldur's Gate comes back into my worlds.
Baldur's Gate?
You've missed a couple episodes where I mentioned it. Baldur's Gate 3 is an online D&D style role-playing game. So it's all turn-based. And it's very perception checks. You have to roll dice and everything. And it's the horniest game on earth.
Is that the one with the sexy vampire guy that everybody is posting about?
It's
just all over my feed, man.
He's my vampire wife, I should say. He's my wife. He's baby girl.
Yeah.
I will protect him. And keep him safe with my strong arms.
He's too porcelain.
He's beautiful. And then you can fuck a bear.
I don't want to.
No, he's a druid.
I
but
choose
he can
not
be a bear.
To. I just don't.
You're a coward.
Yeah,
anyway.
I am. If that makes me a coward, boy howdy, I'm a coward.
You can fuck the tentacle face guys too.
I'll do that.
Yeah, you would. You nasty. Anyway, look, there are achievements you can get, okay? And I like collecting achievements. Don't judge me. How dare you?
Virgo, Capricorn mix up.
To be the best, get all the badges.
Yep.
Beep, beep. Basically, what I'm saying is, I think D&D was great for Sean.
Yeah. He needed an escape.
He needed something.
Yeah.
Would have helped him make
Where else
friends,
is he going to get dopamine?
But, man, we're going to talk about a little bit about the Satanic Panic of the early 80s all the way into all of the 90s, to be honest with you. So in 1979, college student James Egbert tried to take his own life after becoming obsessed with a tabletop RPG, which is a role-playing game, not a rocket-propelled grenade. Well, not everyone listening's a nerd.
Oh.
That deserves to be pushed into a locker, Willow.
I do. I need locker.
Oh, yes. Wedgie.
I
locker.
can fit into a locker still.
I bet. And then a swirly in the turlet.
Turlet.
His mental health struggles really had nothing to do with the game that he used to play with friends in some tunnels under the school, which I think sounds so fun. James's story inspired the book Mazes and Monsters, which was a fictionalized tale about how a young man became violently obsessed with this game. This was made into a movie with Tom Hanks that sucks, but go watch it because it's funny. But if you don't think that didn't kick off a huge satanic panic centered around Dungeons and Dragons, you'd be wrong. Because instead of, look, when kids play Dungeons and Dragons, there's a horny bard that tries to fuck everything. There's a thief that steals everything. And there's a poor, dungeon master, that's the person telling the story, who's just like, oh my God, you fucking murder hobos. Can we just get through one story?
There's
please?
The wizard that blows everything up. And...
Oh, the wizard that blows everything up, including your own
that
party.
That would be me.
Are you the blowing up wizard?
Remember I blew up that whole city?
Oh, that's true.
I accidentally put somebody in a bag of holding and killed them too, because I didn't realize there wasn't any air in there.
That was funny when we carried around the corpse in the bag of holding.
Yeah.
And I was just a slut.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how that went.
Yep.
Not much different than real life. So when Vonda found out that Sean was playing D&D, she responded by sending him away to church camp.
That sounds like my parents.
Doesn't it just? She feared the game's satanic influence, though she was unaware that Sean had dabbled in the occult before he'd ever played D&D. Another part of his story I find a little incredulous, okay? Because here's the deal. Yeah, his parents weren't around a lot, but if they're so strict he can't even play a board game.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they have been going through his stuff? Wouldn't they have found... I'm just not buying it. I'm really not. I do think he played D&D.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So D&D was and is harmless. And I say it's good for kids again. I'll say it twice. Sean felt that church camp was simply another way for his parents to control and abandon him. Mm-hmm. He knew he wasn't the type of son they wanted. He was too soft and too sensitive. And this just reaffirmed his belief when she sent him to these camps in 1982. Sean met a girl at church camp that he became infatuated and obsessed with. He turned away from his occult practices and prayed to God and said, God, if you make this girl like me, I'll stop worshiping the devil. Which is stupid. That's not how any of that works. Well, naturally, the girl paid no mind to him, so he renounced God once more and turned to Satan instead. In 1983, Sean moved with his parents yet again, this time to Greeley, Colorado, which is about an hour north of Denver. Now, Greeley is primarily an animal agricultural town, so it's mostly cows. And I'm not shitting on Greeley by any stretch of the word. I have never been there.
That's where my ex is from. I used to go there all the time.
But I heard it does have a smell.
I didn't actually notice, and I didn't actually see any
twice
cows.
a year. Twice a year. There's a big slaughterhouse right outside of town. And when they do, they get a lot of cows, and it really stinks of manure and offal, which is guts and whatnot. That's real gross.
That's not fun.
Depressing.
Because that's a very pinkies up type place.
Is it? Mm-hmm. I don't think back then it was.
Probably not back then. No. Well, no, because back then Colorado hadn't really gotten their big economic boom.
Not until really the 90s.
Yeah.
90s is when Colorado really
Denver
took off.
Went crazy.
Yeah. So, not a fun place for Sean to be. Sean was 14 at this time. Moving was especially hard on Sean. It had a very destabilizing effect on him. It made his mental health problems worse, and his parents, as per usual, weren't around very much, which isolated him further. The older he got, the harder it became to fit in and make friends, and this is true of anybody. I mean, It's hard to make friends as an adult. Jesus Christ. Sean's parents frequently left him home alone, sometimes for days, and he was a latchkey kid. And if you don't know what a latchkey kid is, that's just a kid who's got a key to his house, and he goes to school and lets himself in, fixes himself dinner. This was a huge thing in the 80s and in the 90s. I was a latchkey kid for a while. It was no big deal.
Me too.
I see a lot of people being really sad about it. I was not sad. I was pumped. Fuck my parents.
Yeah, I got to go home and delete all of my messages on the answering machine about me missing class.
Word.
Yeah.
I got to trace my mom's signature on my progress report.
Good.
She wasn't home.
It's cute.
Yeah, I felt like singing. So this left Sean feeling even more isolated and depressed, and it also gave him a lot of freedom, probably too much. One day, while home alone, he was rummaging in his parents' closet, and inside he found a revolver that belonged to his stepfather. While holding the gun, he thought about killing himself. His depression had turned into suicidal ideation, but after looking at the gun for a while, he put it away. Instead of taking his own life, he fully dedicated himself to the occult. He believed that evil was the only way he could have any agency and control over his life. He wanted the power over his own fate. The people he was supposed to be able to trust had done nothing but neglected, abandoned, and abused him. He saw ritual occult work as a means to regain that control and power. Sean thought the demons were his friends. Sean asked demons to enter his body. He invited them in. He started taking speed, too, so that he could stay up late at night to perform his rituals. These only increased his paranoia and mental health issues. Sean combated his worsening mental health with self-harm. He would cut his arms. He considered this a blood sacrifice, and it helped him feel in control. Sean joined the Civil Air Patrol in his teens. By the end of 1983, he became a cadet in the Civil Air Patrol. In 1984, his parents went on another long-haul trucking, haul. Well, that was dumb. And once again, Sean had to move. He moved in with his Aunt Debbie, who lived in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. Now, back then, Okmulgee was a nothing town. There was nothing there. I know, I went.
And you saw.
And then it was gone. No offense, Okmulgee. I've been in you.
Slower.
I know.
Say that word.
Okmulgee.
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 Don't say oak. That's wrong.
Okay.
Okmulgee.
Ok.
Yep. Fuck it. You're done. You're not saying it again. And I think it's really important. The Civil Air Patrol was something he was really into. He really wanted to participate in that. He was really proud of himself as he rose through the ranks, and this got taken away from him. Just once again, he's ripped away from his life and made to go somewhere he didn't want to go. Sean's depression started spiraling out of control. He started drinking and sneaking alcohol. He didn't bother trying to fit in at school this time. He knew he'd just get moved again when he started feeling attached to someone. He spent most of his time alone, reading in his room, and supposedly performing rituals. Every summer, he was forced to move back to Oklahoma while his parents worked. He self-harmed and used his blood to write a note to Satan, which is very edgy. He said he was selling his soul. By the time Sean was 16 years old, he had been moved a total of 30 times.
Goodness.
The only thing he could count on were his rituals and devotion to the devil. He acquired as many books as he could on the subject and became obsessed with being blasphemous. That was the way to honor Satan, was to break all the 10 Commandments.
Oh.
I guess.
Yeah.
I just don't think the devil would give a shit, personally, but whatever. He stored vials of his own blood in the fridge and would bring this to school where he would drink it. To be edgy? Yeah.
Yeah.
To keep other kids away? Maybe.
Yeah.
Sean, in later interviews, said he came to crave blood. This only alienated him from his peers further. He was voted most likely to become a vampire in high school.
No shit.
This is taken from Sean's interviews while he's in prison. Do I believe any of this? I fucking don't.
I don't think that's a real superlative.
No. I forget what I got voted most likely to do.
You know what mine is?
What?
Most mischievous.
I see that.
Yeah.
I think I got voted most funny or something stupid. Whatever. I wish I got voted most likely to become a vampire. God.
I'm surprised you
Question,
didn't.
Teabags, and you will get on Discord and answer this for me. Would you become a vampire if you were given the choice? If a handsome Dracula man came up to you and he was like, "Come live with me forever," I'd be like, "Woo!"
I'd be a vampire.
I was like, "I gotta bring Maris. Can we throuple this?"
I don't give a shit about that, but I will definitely become a vampire.
I'm a fuck Dracula. Fuck you.
I don't really care. I really want to be a vampire.
Yeah, it'd be rad.
I want to live forever and have a cool castle.
I super duper double looper don't want to drink
Double-looper?
blood.
Oh, I don't care. I'm pretty anemic. I can use
No,
it.
I want to drink iced tea, maybe a Mai Tai, or a nice glass of refreshing, hydrating water. I don't want anything to do with fluids that come out of people. Blah! I don't know where these bitches been. Yeah. I don't know their diet. I don't know. What if they're just like, all I eat is chicken nuggies and Pop-Tarts? I don't want to be drinking that into my vampire body.
I think it could be worse. Sorry.
I don't think there's anything worse than people. I'm just going to drink rats or something. Fuck you. You can be a murdery vampire. During this time period, Sean met up with a childhood friend named Richard Howard. The two of them then rekindled their friendship. Richard had been raised by his grandparents, so Sean felt like the two of them understood each other. Richard was also curious about the occult, because let's face it, lots of kids are.
Yeah.
I think this is when the occult came into play. I think it did not come in any time before this. I don't think he was doing it while he was 6.
I think he wanted to be cool saying that.
Yes, or make it sound more serious and that so much was out of his control because he was possessed by demons the whole time. Mm-hmm. Don't buy it. Nope. This. I think the kids got into it together. I know because that's around the age I got interested in the occult. I was 12. Mm-hmm. And did I drag friends into it? You betcha. Mm-hmm. But mine was never edgy. It was more woo. And this is pretty edgy, but it's teenage boy edgy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. So, of course, they're playing D&D and reading the Satanic Bible and being, like, smoking cigarettes and around a bonfire.
Yeah, that's normal.
Normal,
that's
edgy
all normal shit.
It is. So, yeah, Richard had more friends than Sean. Sean had nothing but Richard, and so Richard was bringing his friends around, and now they're the alt kids of their school. That's exactly how it happens. They're the goth kids in the school. They're liking the heavy metal music. They're wearing all black and being creepy, and everybody's making fun of them, but they're a tight-knit group. It's them against the world. Yep. You can see it.
Yep.
Sean performed his first satanic baptism, drawing in Richard's friends into his dark world. Eventually, they formed a small group, kind of like a coven. That's what ends up happening. That's what people want to call it. Was it a coven? No.
Is it a bro coven?
No, it was a group of ding-dongs. It's a group of ding-dong children doing ding-dong stuff. Being edgy and talking about the darkness. Yes, how do I know? I was that ding-dong. Sean stole a black cloth from a department store to conduct a ritual with his new friends, but he was caught by the cops. He didn't get in any trouble for this. They just said no and slapped him on the wrist and sent him home. Sean started drinking and doing drugs again, and his grades started slipping. Before this, he'd been an honor student. Again, I don't think he did drugs until this time, because how did he keep it up before then? I think it was here he started doing drugs. I think it was here he got into the occult with his friends.
Got friends.
And he was doing fun
finally
friend
had friends.
Yeah, and he's acting ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's misbehaving because he's rebelling against his neglectful parents. Because when he's rebelling, what he's really saying to them is, please discipline me, because that means you love me.
Yeah.
That's why they
Or just pay attention to me.
Just pay attention.
Yeah.
I think if it had even a crumb of attention from his parents, he wouldn't have gone down a darker road. Sean had a demon he believed he had a special relationship with. He called this demon Ezerate. He would invite this demon into his body. Sean said that Ezerate was a demon that had once been a human girl. Now, I'm pretty up on my demonology, okay? I could name a lot of them, and none of them are named that. That is a made-up thing. Demons are either fallen angels or creations of fallen angels. They are never people. People are never demons. That is not a thing that they are. This is how I know. This kid made this shit up. Yeah. He said that she was a girl in a village and that the village was attacked by the military, but a mad scientist took her in to be his lab assistant. But there was a horrible lab accident and this made her a demon. This sounds like a stupid anime.
This is...
Sounds like a bad 80s movie, don't it?
It's worse than a bad 80s movie. This is a child's imagination.
Yes. Ezerate. Come on now. Stop it. From then on out, she was a demon. And this is the main demon that Sean claimed influenced him. He said she was a trickster spirit with a long black forked tail. He said that she could appear human or in just about any shape she wanted. Okay. Sean continued to be a problem at school. He was always trying to shock and frighten his classmates. Once during a biology class frog dissection, He tore the legs off the frog with his teeth.
God.
Sean then wrote in an essay assignment that he felt free enough to kill without remorse. The school called his mother Vonda, but Sean just didn't respect anything she had to say. It was like pissing in the wind for all good her talking to him did.
Pissing in the wind?
You're just going to get piss on yourself. Don't piss in the wind. Piss with the wind at your back so then the wind blows your pee away. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Never heard that.
Could also fart into the wind, and then that fart's just going to blow back at you. Don't do that.
Back at you.
You don't want that. You don't want to, like, fucking crop dust yourself.
Nope.
Unless you're into the smell of your own cooking. I don't shame nobody, but that's gross. So, yeah. I don't know. I feel a lot. I wish there was corroborating testimony from people, but there just isn't. All of this is his invention. I feel like some of it's true, some of it's made up. I think him and his friends were doing dumb Satan-y stuff in the woods, being kids, getting drunk, smoking cigarettes, sneaking out, being menaces. I think him and Richard, we've talked about this before when we did like Friendship Month, the intensity of teenage friendships, especially with girls, but it can happen with boys too. And that there's something when you get two people together who have similar issues, they just amplify each other. And it's an obsession. Yeah, they do. It's like they were in love with each other in a non-romantic way.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. There was an abandoned farmhouse at the edge of town that Sean commandeered for him and his new friends to perform satanic rituals in. Richard and Sean felt like they were really connected. They were brothers. So they drank each other's blood to cement their kinship. Yucky.
Blood brothers.
But they weren't any good for each other. On September 7th, 1985, Sean and Richard went into an Oklahoma City Circle K convenience store and tried to buy a 6-pack of beer. And they're 16 at the time. When the clerk, 32-year-old Robert Bauer, refused to sell it to them, Sean was enraged. Robert had to kick the teens out of the store, and Sean and Richard went back to the farmhouse where Sean told Richard he would have his revenge.
Dear God, calm down.
He said they needed to make a sacrifice to Satan. They often talked about raping and torturing people for Satan, but Sean was serious this time. This would be more than just a fantasy or big talk. I find it so disturbing that when fantasy is involved, it goes to raping and murdering.
Yeah.
But I think Richard actually played a really big hand in influencing Sean. I really do.
He's just as fucked up.
Oh, yeah. Maybe more so. Richard stole a .357 Magnum from his grandfather and gave it to Sean for the sacrifice. The next day, on September 8th, 1985, Sean and Richard returned to the Circle K. Once there, Sean told Richard he wanted to know what it felt like to kill someone. So Richard egged him on, encouraging him, and once Sean felt confident enough, he went into the Circle K. He pretended like he was going to buy something. Sean made small talk until he was sure Robert was at ease. Then he shot at him as Robert was drinking his coffee. The first shot didn't hit Robert, who immediately tried to run out the back door. Sean shot at him again, but this didn't kill him, it only hit him in the leg. Richard blocked Robert's escape and told Sean to finish it. Sean shot him point blank in the chest with hollow point bullets, which shattered upon impact, piercing his heart and his lungs. Robert was killed almost instantly from this third shot. Police had no leads on Robert's murder. There was no CCTV at the store. Robbery wasn't a motive. To Sean and Richard, it was a sign from Satan, and they'd just gotten away with murder. And in fact, he would have, had it not been for later. The murder and sacrifice, though, if we're honest, was just an act of revenge. I mean, come on. I think calling it a sacrifice for Satan was tacked on later. I think he was just pissed the guy wouldn't sell him beer.
Yeah.
And made him look dumb in front of his friend. Made him look like a weak, dumb kid.
And by saying that he's a sacrifice to Satan, it makes him feel much bigger than he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. After committing this murder, it instilled Sean with confidence. And he got a job at a nightclub for teenagers. And he met a girl there named Angel. She was 15, and he was instantly in love with her. They started dating.
Of course, someone who's like, I heart demons is in love with an angel.
She was no angel.
I'm just saying her name is Angel.
I know. I thought that was ironic as well. Sean brought her to hang out at his parents' house frequently, but because Angel had dropped out of school and smoked cigarettes, Vonda didn't want the girl in her house anymore and forbade Sean from seeing her. Parents, if your kid is dating someone you do not like, you keep that shit to yourself, because if you don't, you're going to Romeo and Juliet the hell out of them kids.
Yeah.
Be nice to them. Be nice, even if you hate them, and trust me, you will. There are going to be a few you hate. Producer Will dated this one dumb hoe that I just could not. She was so mean to him. She was so mean to Will. And of course, I wanted to say, break up with her. She sucks. But I didn't do that. I'm glad I didn't, because I maintained the relationship with my kid. The relationship ended anyway.
Right.
I'm just saying, don't do that, because that makes kids do crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know.
When you are 16 years old, you think you're an adult.
Yeah.
And by God, no one's going to tell me who to love.
It doesn't matter what somebody tells you. Whatever they tell you, you're going to do the opposite, because that's just like, that's how your mind works at that age. You know, you're supposed to figure things out the hard way because you're young and your brain is developing. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like Jedi mind trick.
It's dumb. It just, they'll do the opposite of what you tell them just to be fucking contrary.
Don't tell them.
Don't.
Yeah, don't tell them to.
Did your kids start wearing all black and listening to weird music? Ignore it. Maybe it's a phase. I'm 44, still doing it, Dad.
Yeah.
But the point is, don't make it a bone of contention. It's small in the river of life. Let it go like a little pebble in a stream or a leaf or whatever, and fucking move on. Enraged, Sean ran away from home. He stayed in the abandoned farmhouse and got a job at a pizza parlor, and he still went to school. I'm telling you, if this kid heard voices and was delusional, as he says, being homeless, working, and going to school ain't happening. I did not have those mental health problems, and I couldn't keep it up. I had to drop out of high school. Financial struggles and sleeping rough made him decide it was time to move back home with his parents. Vonda was now aware that her son was on the wrong path. She wrote him a 6-page letter saying that she was so worried about him and that she loved him. But to Sean, it was too late. She'd abandoned and abused him, and his resentments were overwhelming. He hated her. To him, his mother was just trying to control him. Sean believed that it was ordered from Satan that he should kill his own mother. He began plotting by putting rat poison in her coffee. But nothing happened. She either had like a really high tolerance to the poison for whatever reason, or he hadn't put in enough. He must have done something wrong. In March of 1986, he took enough drugs to keep himself up for 3 days. I don't believe this either, but we'll get to that in a minute. When he finally passed out from sheer exhaustion, he woke the following day ready to exact his punishment on his mother and stepfather. He snuck into his parents' room and into their closet and stole his stepfather's revolver. On the night of March 4th, 1986, Sean performed a ritual to summon Ezerate to go into his body and give him the strength to kill his parents, because Paul had been a Green Beret, so he would need all the help he could get, and he would have to kill him first. After the ritual, he crept into his parents' bedroom while they were sleeping. Sean in interviews said that he wore only black underwear, and I find that really weird. Yeah. He looked down at his parents, aimed the gun at Paul's head, he fired. Then he shot his mother in the head. Her head raised up a little bit when the bullet entered her head, so he shot her again to make sure she was dead. After cold-bloodedly killing his parents, he trashed the room, throwing things out of drawers onto the floor to make it look like a robbery. This never works unless you take shit.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to help no killer out, but come on, y'all.
Yeah.
Take shit. And valuable shit. Hide it. Don't, well, whatever. It's just so stupid. Then he started to panic once the realization and reality of what he'd done came to him, so he ran to his friend Richard's house, and they concocted a plan. The boys decided that Richard would take the gun and get rid of it, and then Richard would act as Sean's alibi, saying that that Sean had spent the night at Richard's house, so he couldn't have committed the murders. Mm-hmm. So he stayed the night over there. In the morning, the boys went over to Sean's house. Sean ran into the kitchen and splashed water on his face to make it look like he'd been crying. And then he ran out of his house screaming and carrying on about that his parents had been killed. And a neighbor called 911. And of course, police and investigators show up. And right away, they found his demeanor very suspicious. He had a flat affect. He didn't seem very emotional. And again, if you kill somebody, it's time to really turn on the waterworks.
Right.
I don't know why. It's arrogance or something. He just lost his parents and didn't act like somebody who had lost their parents to a brutal slave.
And just walked in on it.
Yeah. So police brought Richard and Sean in for questioning. They interrogated him for 7 hours. And he finally broke.
Wow.
He not only confessed to the murder of his parents, but also Robert Bauer at Circle K. As a result of the confession, both Sean and Richard were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. As well they should have been.
Right.
Richard took a deal immediately, and of course he sang like a canary to get a deal.
Mm-hmm.
He testified against Sean at trial and got a 5-year deferred sentence. And I don't think that's right. That's not right.
And how old are they at this point?
16.
That's what I thought.
I'll give my opinion on the death penalty for a crime committed when you're under the age of 18 in just a minute. Because that's fucked.
Yeah.
Fucked. Look, if you're going to kill somebody, don't do it in Texas or Oklahoma or Arizona. They just love executing folks over there. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be wrong about Arizona. It might have changed. But Texas and Oklahoma and Florida, they love killing folks. Don't kill people there.
To add Florida.
Uh-huh. So his defense was that he had addiction to drugs, he was under demonic possession, and he had an addiction to Dungeons and Dragons.
Addiction.
An addiction, that's what it was called.
Okay.
So he pled not guilty. You can guess how that went over with the jury.
Yeah.
Like a lead fucking balloon.
Yeah.
Not well. There were no laws in place at the time to let Sean out, like after a certain amount of time served. Because nowadays, if you're a kid and you kill somebody, like Sean did, after about 20 years, they do let you out.
Mm-hmm.
Because your brain isn't done developing.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really capable of making rational decisions.
And if a child is going to kill somebody, there has to have been something that happened.
Warning signs out the wazoo.
Or some sort of abuse or some sort of
mitigating circumstances.
Yeah.
And none of those things were taken into account. So the jury, without any, it was either that or he would have gotten a very light sentence of like 7 years or something. So they chose the death penalty.
Oh.
He was found guilty. And then he became the youngest inmate on Oklahoma's death row.
That's a child.
16 years old.
I mean, I had a baby at 17.
Still, you were still a kid.
Still a child having a child.
And 18 isn't some magical number. It takes people like 25, 30 before they're really grown up.
Amen to that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
To myself.
Me too.
So did Sean really worship the devil? Or was this all a big story and lie concocted to avoid the death penalty? I think it's that. I do. I think towards the end, he was doing some occult stuff with his buddies. Do I think he started at 6? No. Was he possessed by demons? No, that demon doesn't even exist in demon lore, and I'm very familiar with demon lore.
There's
I don't know.
A demon that is her. No.
Ezerate, no.
Ezerate?
Ezerate.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like one of those like D&D name generators.
Sure fucking does.
Yep.
I bet if you looked up in D&D, there's probably some NPC named Ezerate or some shit like that. He killed. If we want to look at like the motives behind why he committed these murders, the first one, the dude humiliated him and made him mad.
Yeah.
He went and talked shit with his friend. They got all hepped up and they killed this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Why did he kill his parents? Because they wouldn't let him see that girl. And I think that's all the motive that you need. I don't think you need any more motive for murder.
Yeah, especially when you're 16 and gone through so much.
Mm-hmm. He was completely destabilized. I do believe he was on drugs. Absolutely believe that.
Yeah.
Do I think he had mental illnesses? Well, we're going to talk about that now. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Sean was later examined by mental health professionals who concluded that he had dissociative identity disorder, which was called multiple personality disorder at the time. This was and is a very controversial diagnosis. If he'd been hearing voices, that's not necessarily a hallmark of DID, can be included, but it's usually a hallmark of schizophrenia or other episodes that cause psychotic delusions, other illnesses that do that. Do I think he had DID? Y'all, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I don't feel learned enough on this subject to even give an opinion.
But it is a common tactic when trying to get
yes.
out of death sentences, especially.
Mm-hmm. So this was used for his appeals, and the judge just said he didn't think that would have changed the jury's decision. I think his age should have been the reason.
Yes. Yes.
Sean's case went before the Supreme Court in November of 1998. This was his final appeal. The Supreme Court didn't rule in his favor and demanded an execution date be set. So it was. This caused quite the controversy at the time because of how young he was when he was convicted. Sean converted to Christianity in the last years of his life and was a model prisoner. He gave many interviews about the occult and educating people on its dangers for a guy who absolutely knew jack shit about the occult. As someone who knows a lot about the occult, like a lot, it's my special interest, he knew nothing about the occult. He made up shit. It was like D&D. Like, he read the D&D rule book and monster guide and was like, I'm just going to make up things.
This is a cult.
No.
No.
I think he read the Satanic Bible, which isn't even real Satan. It's not Luciferian Satanism, which is where you actually worship the devil. It's more a philosophy that you will have no gods and no masters and serve yourself. It's pretentious stuff dudes, like atheist dudes, love. So I don't like it. But not because it has it has nothing to do with Satan. Anton LaVey just wanted to make money and be shocking. Well, congrats, you bald-headed prick. Sorry, I just think it's stupid. Do I think Satanism is stupid? Yeah. Like, the devil hates you. Why would you worship him? That's weird. I think worshiping anything is weird, personally, but you do you. Boo boo. I'm not going to judge you out loud. Well. Anyway. So he made one last plea to Oklahoma's Governor Keating, and I remember this prick, fuck this guy, for clemency, and he was denied. Sean Richard Sellers was executed by lethal injection on February 4th, 1999 at only 29 years old.
Oh my God. His
last meal was shrimp tempura. Some of his last words included, "Here I come, Father, I'm coming home," speaking to God. He then said to the warden, "Let's get it on." And then his final words were a song. "Set my spirit free that I might praise thee. Set my spirit free that I might worship thee." At 12:17 a.m., Sean was declared dead. In 2004, the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional to execute someone who had committed a crime under the age of 18. Fucking amen, thank you. So what do you all think? Do you think it was the devil? Was he mentally ill? Should he have faced the death penalty and have been executed?
I'm so saddened by this case.
It's fucked up. It's stupid. It makes me mad.
Like, of course, I don't think that those people should have been killed.
Absolutely not.
I don't think he should have been killed either.
No. Didn't make it right, did it?
No.
He even said, y'all are going to do this and feel no different tomorrow. And I agree with him on that.
Yeah.
Ain't going to bring your loved one back. And I don't think he should have been killed.
No.
I think he should have been rehabilitated. He was 16 when he did it. And he was a disturbed 16-year-old on drugs. Abandoned, abused, and neglected. And I didn't tell you all that so you'll feel sorry for him. But I want you to think about how our justice system is just so broken.
I really do wish that they could all be held accountable for that.
I do too. This is why I'm anti-death penalty, y'all. Not that I don't think some people don't deserve the death penalty. I do. Mm-hmm. I think there's some monsters in this world and we ought to snuff them out. There ain't no rehabilitating no fucking Ted Bundy. Are you kidding me? Kill that motherfucker. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey Dahmer, bye. Mm-hmm. John Wayne Gacy, child molesters, rapists. I'm all for it. But you know what? Until we stop executing people like Sean and black men who were innocent and we find out years later, we can't execute one innocent man. And it's disproportionately black men, by the way. Mm-hmm. It's morally wrong to go about doing that. Do I think it was the devil? No. I think he made a lot of that shit up.
I don't think he even knew I don't think he...
He did not have a personal relationship with Spicy Daddy. No.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. He was just leaning into it because other cases...
Mm-hmm.
In the
because the Satanic Panic was in full swing, and don't you know, y'all, that this just made every teenager's life hell in Oklahoma for a while. Yeah. It really did. I always wondered why being goth was so scary to everyone in the 90s. I was like, oh my God, y'all calm down. It's just some fashion.
Yeah. They thought literal demons were going to shoot out your eyeballs.
It was because of this shit that all what came before it. I just had no idea about it. I had my little head up my butt. I was just like, it's sexy. You know the reason I started dressing goth, Willow? There was a boy who worked at Denny's who was really hot and he was goth. And I did end up dating him later.
Good job.
And then I fucked his brother. Why? I'm evil. I don't know.
Good job. I'm proud of you.
Thanks. So I've been goth since I was 14. And I will never... That's fucking... Good Lord. That's 30 years. 30 years. That's a long time. You know what's not a long time?
Oh, my Jesus.
Business time. Actually, I'm going to keep it as short as humanly possible because this episode's over an hour long and I'm very tired now and I want to go lay down and it's hot in my room suddenly. So, yeah, my soap, it's up, it's live. Get your soap. Mm-hmm. Get your soap. And you know what? I'm doing something crazy. I'm going to do a mystery box of all my fall scents and I'm going to price it like something stupid cheap, like $30. And there's a 10% coupon code T soap. It'll be in the description.
TEA or just T?
TEA soap. All caps. One word. Yes. And my shipping is $5, whether it weighs 10 pounds or 1 pound. I like to try and keep it nice. So go get you some soap. I'm going to do some big mystery boxes. That listing will be up by the time you listen to this episode. And it'll be like $150 of like art, jewelry, soap, lotion, you name it. It's just going to be packed full, like $150 value. So get you some. Still doing tarot readings. Keep them coming. I'm enjoying them. I'll run my special till the end of October. And there's more info in the description. You can help Willow out. There's info about that in the description. But most of all, hey, our Patreon. We talked about it earlier in this episode. That is 4 extra episodes a month for only $5. That's not too bad. We have all kinds of tiers for all kinds of budget. So come on over, check it out. We're going to be really focusing on our Patreon since we've gone down an episode a week. But if all you can do to support this podcast is listen, I appreciate you and I thank you. Also, there's merch. Forgot to mention, get a hoodie.
Please take
weather.
Pictures of yourself wearing our merch.
Don't be shy. Oh my God.
Send me selfies. I miss y'all. I love y'all.
Yeah. Willow's been through the ringer. We're going to cut her some slack.
I need a hug.
She do need a hug. And like, I've been so stressy. I have like given myself seizures. I couldn't get my medicine because I didn't have enough money. Y'all, what the fuck is this month? It's supposed to be fun.
It's my birthday. Favorite. It's my birthday month and it's been shit.
Yeah, it's not been good.
So my links are down below if you guys want to help me out for my birthday.
Yeah. But hey, love you guys. Thank you. And we'll see you next time. Us on your social media platform of choice. Linktree/cruelty has all of the links. Check out our Patreon for exclusive episodes, merch, ad-free episodes, live ghost hunts, and much more. Please be sure to subscribe. New episodes are uploaded weekly. Thank you so much. See you next time. Music and production by Libby.